if you know Nolan, he has very consciously and repeatedly tried to compare himself or parallel his career to Kubrick. And Kubrick had a very long relationship with Warner Brothers as well. So this is a pretty historical moment in terms of the larger conversation about films and streaming and how media is changing. But to some extent, we kind of all knew this was going to happen. For those completely unaware, I'll just go through the controversy quickly that Nolan, I think, by many measures, was disappointed with Tenet. He insisted that it be released during the crisis and was still disappointed that Warner Brothers was not more supportive of his vision. Now, I myself have already reviewed Tenet. I saw it in theaters. I actually saw it in December, so it's technically still available in theaters. He's really forced it to remain in theaters in order to make back its budget. But again, I have to say it's one of his weaker efforts. I'm not going to go through a thorough review here, but I can kind of see why it didn't do as well as it should have. It maybe just wasn't a strong film to begin with. But nevertheless, it appears that Nolan feels very disturbed at how Warner Brothers is trying to build up HBO Max at the expense of, quote, traditional cinema. And so he's moving on to another studio. Again, this isn't radical or revolutionary. This has happened before. But again, this does signal that for many auteurs, Warner Bros. Is no longer the studio they want to work with, and that they're willing to look at other studios or streaming service rather than work with them. So we really can't see this except in light of the Snyder Cut and just a lot of shady and shaky moves they've been doing with Dune, Kong, Godzilla, and their other major films, and their decision to put them on HBO Max rather than testing them in theaters. And Dune will be quite an experiment because it's being offered both on HBO Max and will be in theaters. But again, it is not a superhero film, and it does have an auteur as one of its main drivers with Denis Villeneuve. So we can either look at it two ways. One is that Warner Brothers is just trying to adjust to the market, or they are trying to threaten the cinematic experience, and that's something that Nolan has always been very serious about, and hoping that the theatrical experience will be maintained. Of course, there's self-interest, right? He's a much, much richer and much more powerful auteur than most directors, so he can force studios to pay him a lot more, and he reaps more of the profits. But I think Nolan is just trying to be serious as a filmmaker, and he's just trying to adjust himself to where would be the best studio for this particular project. And again, it does feel a little risky. This is a historical drama. He's never really done that. The only one that would really qualify is Dunkirk, and that's more of a war film. So this is kind of untested waters for both Universal and Nolan, but I think this is a good deal, and broadly speaking, this is going to benefit most people, including auteurs, but also the Hollywood system as a whole, that we still have some auteurs that are able, through their name recognition alone, to open a movie and, again, force the studios to have a theatrical run that is pretty long. Again, now the norm seems to be 45 days, but Nolan is going to try to make sure this thing stays in theaters for a very long time. And I think that's healthy because, again, people cannot always see a film on opening weekend or the next weekend, right? They live lives, they're busy. This is actually good for many families and for many individuals that they can sort of wait a while before they see something in theaters. And I don't think Nolan has ever made a bad film. He has made lesser or stronger films. Whether this Universal deal will be replicated by other auteur directors, we're going to have to wait and see. But it's an interesting moment in film history if you are into film at a more serious level. But as a Nolan fan, it will be interesting that this was going to be one of his first major big budget projects, not with Warner Brothers. Really, we'd have to go back to Memento to sort of see him be in his kind of pre-Warner Brothers days. It's going to be interesting times ahead, and hopefully it works out for him because, again, I can understand where HBO Max is coming from and Warner Bros. Is coming from, but as a Snyder and Nolan fan, I think you have to say, as well as a Dune fan, Warner Bros. Has burnt up a lot of their credibility, so they're going to do a lot to earn back the trust that people used to have, both audiences and directors and producers, with how they operate. Thanks for listening.